When I was struggling with anxiety, I was getting these intense symptoms, but over time, because I wasn't getting the solutions I needed, I started beginning to feel hopeless. I started experiencing feelings of burnout, of depression, because I felt like I had an unsolvable problem. And what happened was that my lust for life, my motivation started creeping away. If you're dealing with these symptoms, I want to make this video to help you understand what's going on. This video is going to be more of an educational video. I'm going to be explaining to you the mechanics of what's happening so that you understand that you're not broken. I'll make sure to give you some resources to help support you on the recovery journey. And more importantly, by the end of the video, I'll be showing you exactly what you can do to begin reversing the cycle so that you can not just avoid burnout and anxiety, but you can also focus on regaining that motivation and go back to living fully and freely. Let's get it started. Now, let's define some terms before we start breaking down the steps of recovery. How would you define burnout? Many times people associate this with work stress, but this could be anything. Any sort of stressor that you have that feels like an unsolvable problem. For me, when I was going through this anxiety journey, because I was experiencing such intense symptoms, because I was getting such intense panic attacks, I kept going to doctors. I was trying to figure out this problem. I would spend all day Google searching my symptoms, but because I couldn't figure it out, I started feeling exhausted. But this can also happen in work situations, in relationship situations. Many times I define these experiences of burnout as experiencing brain fog, as experiencing detachment. You might be experiencing depersonalization, derealization. You notice that you're always tired, which is ironic, right? Because anxiety is always about maybe feeling a lot of energy, but here you're feeling emotionally tired, you're feeling physically tired. You might be getting sick more often. You might also not be able to sleep well. Many times you'll hear stories of people that were working too hard and just pushed themselves too far off the edge, and now they experience burnout. Or they experience burnout and they never really come back to themselves. They never experience that zestful joy in life anymore. And you might be wondering, is this something that I'm going through? Well, what I want to do is I want to explain the mechanics of what's going on, because when you experience these things, it's hard to believe that this is just anxiety. Now, before I break down the mechanics of what's going on, a great resource for you is this free ebook that I've written, basically showing you the principles of recovery. Whether you're somebody that's been watching this channel for a long time or you recently discovered it, this free ebook is going to give you an all-encompassing full view of the recovery journey and the mechanics of what's going on. Definitely check it out. Now, it's important to understand whether you're experiencing intense physical symptoms or you're experiencing these feelings of burnout, maybe some sadness, a little bit of depression. It all falls within the nervous system, specifically the autonomic nervous system. This is a part of a nervous system you can't consciously control. Now, the way to look at this is breaking down the autonomic nervous system in 3 categories. Our goal here is to simplify recovery. So I'm not going to be going too much into the names or the complexities around it. I just want to give you a better understanding so that you can understand what's happening and utilize it on your healing journey. Now, the first branch is what we call the fight or flight response. Many people classify this as anxiety in itself. I look at anxiety as more of a stress response in general, but people describe the fight or flight response as this immobilization of whenever you're in a threat, you burn through a lot of resources to protect yourself. Now, it's important to understand that this is a perceived threat. This could be work situations. This can be relationship stuff. This can be personal things that are going on. So that's the fight or flight response. Now there's the rest and digest response. This is what happens when there is no stressor, when life is good, when everything's okay, when you can sleep well, you have food, you have shelter, you have safety, you have good friends, you have good family, everything is okay. Whenever there's no major stressor happening, this is where the rest and digest response kicks in. And then there's the third. This is called the dorsal vagal response. This is what happens when you're experiencing a prolonged stress for an extended period of time. And it's almost like a mental airbag that goes off in your brain. It's designed to protect you from the traumatic situation. When you feel helpless, when you feel like you're so overwhelmed, this phase happens and it's a way to detach you from the stressor. Now, it's important to understand a healthy person isn't someone that just experiences rest and digest. A healthy person is able to dynamically switch between one branch to another depending on the situation. So if there's a stressful situation happening, your fight or flight response kicks in naturally, but when the stressful response ends up passing, you go back into rest and digest. If you're experiencing a stressful situation for such an extended period of time and you're feeling overwhelmed, dorsal vagal response is supposed to kick in. It's supposed to protect you from that stressor. Now, the truth is that if you're experiencing these symptoms, your body has gotten a little bit stronger on one side, and what's happened is that it's harder for it to calm down, to be in that rest and digest. This doesn't mean you're inherently broken. It's just like working out. If you overtrain one muscle, the other muscles get weaker, and what happens is that you experience some imbalances. Now, what happens is that when people are experiencing burnout, what happens is that they've been in this chronic stress for such an extended period of time, they haven't been able to cope or respond to the stressful situation, and what happens is that their body goes into this dorsal vagal response where they start experiencing symptoms of burnout. Much like when I was on my recovery journey, when I still didn't have the answers, I remember going to a therapist and I basically did a survey and she said, you're struggling with panic attacks, you have generalized anxiety disorder, specifically health anxiety disorder, you're experiencing OCD, and you're experiencing a little bit of depression, but the depression is coming because of the anxiety. Now, what happened was that as I started getting better, as I started learning the principles, as I was recovering, much like what I show you in that free ebook, the feelings of burnout ended up disappearing on its own. And the reason why I was experiencing that burnout was because I felt like I had this unsolvable problem. And so do you see how all this stuff is connected? Do you see how burnout and anxiety plays such a close link with one another? This is why we always say to simplify recovery and throw everything under the anxiety umbrella. Many people will look at this situation and say, oh, well, I have two problems. I have anxiety and I have burnout. But the truth is that it's all part of the same problem, that if you can solve this issue, all of this ends up going away. Now, if you're experiencing burnout, you might have tried to do things like take some time off, rest, try to relax, but you notice none of it's working. The truth is that these things are effective to a degree in coping and managing, but only if you're able to respond to what's happening. What I mean by this is that whenever you're experiencing these sensations, you're experiencing these feelings that are just incredibly uncomfortable, you have to ask yourself, how am I responding to these sensations? Most people are responding to what we call the 5 Fs. They're either fearing their symptoms or sensation, they're always trying to fight it, they may be doing something or they might be avoiding so they don't experience it. 3 is they're trying to fix it. They are trying to do chamomile tea. They're trying to do breathing exercises. They're trying to sleep. They're not doing this because they're trying to relax. They're doing this because they're trying to make these symptoms go away. They're also very focused on the sensations and symptoms. They're thinking, okay, is the symptom there? Is it not? Why is it here today? I was doing better last time, but it seems to come back, and they're getting frustrated by it. Anytime they're feeling these feelings of discomfort or numbness, they are incredibly frustrated. It almost ruins their day. They're saying, why am I experiencing this? I can't live life normally. I wish I could just be a normal person that never went through this experience. So it's important to ask yourself, where are you doing these 5 things? You might be doing one of them. You might be doing 3 of them. You might be doing all 5. But if you're doing any one of these, it doesn't matter how many coping tricks you try to do, like breathing exercises or, resting. If you're doing these things, these symptoms will stay alive. Now, learning to let these symptoms be there without fighting it in itself is a practice. And when we're guiding people on the healing journey, oftentimes most of our energy is helping them not fight the symptoms. We're not doing anything to make these symptoms go away. We're not even trying to identify and isolate these symptoms. We are just throwing it all under an umbrella and basically saying, just respond to all these sensations without any resistance. Continue living life as normally as you can. Are you going to be experiencing symptoms along the way? Are you going to be experiencing feelings of burnout, of brain fog, all these things? Yes. But it's important to not think that I'm somehow different or unique because I'm experiencing these symptoms that don't classify in the classic anxiety. And so what happens is that as people get better at not resisting and regaining their life and going back to living, what happens is that they see that these symptoms start dropping off on their own. Now, people cannot usually go to life of 100% right away. It takes time. They have to work towards it. When I was on the healing journey, I was somebody who was working all the time, and then basically I became housebound. I couldn't work. I couldn't pay rent. I ended up staying at my parents' house at the time. And what happened was that I started by doing a part-time job. and then doing that for a little while, and then moving to full-time, and then going to grad school, and then doing grad school and work, and then, slowly working my way up. And so the important thing to understand that this isn't an overnight thing. And so a lot of times people feel in these moments that, they feel helpless, they feel hopeless. But the truth is that you have to be patient with yourself. Your body takes time to heal. And so it won't happen overnight. And so yelling at it and getting frustrated with yourself also doesn't help. You can't treat your symptoms differently and then expect yourself to be treated differently, expecting a better result. What I mean to say is that you can't treat your symptoms with compassion, but then treat yourself with a certain level of rigidity, constantly arguing with yourself and trying to, beat yourself down. You have to be compassionate with yourself as well. So I hope this video helps. If you want to know more about the recovery principles, there's a bunch of resources down below. You can also apply to work with us. If you want to know the 5 steps to overcoming these symptoms once and for all, make sure to check out this video up here. I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll see you in the next one.